Maggie Lena Draper was born on July 15, 1864, in Richmond, Virginia, a city still trembling from the final tremors of the American Civil War. Her birth came just months before the official end of slavery, yet her roots were deeply tied to its horrors. Her mother, Elizabeth Draper, was a formerly enslaved woman who had worked as a cook for Elizabeth Van Lew, a prominent Union spy. Her father, Eccles Cuthbert, an Irish-American journalist, was not part of Maggie's life, leaving her mother to raise her alone. Elizabeth later married William Mitchell, a butler and former enslaved man, who gave Maggie the name she would carry forward. The family lived in post-emancipation poverty, eking out a living through domestic work and odd jobs. Richmond's racial tensions and economic deprivation were unrelenting, yet Maggie's mother instilled in her a pride in labor and dignity in perseverance. She often helped her mother deliver laundry, witnessing firsthand the realities of black womanhood in a divided society. Maggie's early life was defined by contradiction, newly free, yet born into a world that still viewed her skin as a shackle. The Reconstruction period promised change, but Jim Crow laws and the Black Codes ensured that black progress remained under siege. Still, Maggie showed signs of brilliance and leadership early on, traits she would wield like a sword against injustice later in life. Her mother's work ethic and deep sense of community influence would inspire young Maggie to dream bigger than the alleys and laundry tubs of Richmond. These humble beginnings laid the emotional and psychological blueprint for a woman who would later change the course of African American financial history. She was born poor, but not powerless. And it was this defiant seed, planted in the ashes of American slavery, that would eventually grow into one of the most astonishing stories in U.S. history. As Maggie grew, so did her ambition, and her burdens. In the fractured society of post-Civil War Virginia, education for African Americans was more rebellion than routine. Still, Maggie enrolled in the Richmond Colored Normal School, one of the few places black youth could receive a formal education. There, she quickly distinguished herself as a sharp, disciplined student with a hunger for knowledge and a deep sense of purpose. She was a natural leader, drawn to justice and driven by a vision few others her age could even imagine. But Maggie's academic pursuits were rocked by tragedy. Her stepfather, William Mitchell, was found drowned under suspicious circumstances in the James River in 1876. Rumors swirled around his death, possibly a targeted attack or racial retaliation, but no justice was ever served. At just 12 years old, Maggie was thrust into the role of provider. She began helping her mother more seriously with the laundry business, a job that not only exhausted her body but also sharpened her understanding of racial and economic inequality. While scrubbing the garments of white families who viewed her as inferior, Maggie dreamed of ownership, of a life where black people could manage, control, and prosper from their own labor. These laundry routes were more than chores, they were her first business lessons. She learned logistics, bookkeeping, negotiation, and customer relations, all skills that would later serve her in boardrooms and banking halls. Despite the heavy weight of adult responsibilities, Maggie refused to let go of her education. She graduated in 1883 and began teaching at the same school she had attended, hoping to light a similar fire in others. But Virginia's Jim Crow laws had other ideas. When she married Armstead Walker Jr., a successful brick contractor, she was forced to resign. Laws at the time barred married women from teaching. Her professional options as a black woman were cruelly limited, but Maggie was far from done. Rather than retreat, she redirected her brilliance. She joined the Independent Order of St. Luke, a mutual aid society founded to care for the sick, bury the dead, and empower the black community. It was here, among pamphlets, ledgers, and the passionate voices of her people, that Maggie found her true calling, economic liberation. The organization was in disarray, teetering on collapse, but Maggie, armed with her mother's work ethic, her father's absence, and her own undying fire, would rise to become its most transformative leader. This was not just education. This was awakening. The struggle had become strategy. The laundry tubs, the lectures, and the law books had all prepared her for what came next, the beginning of a financial revolution led by a black woman no one saw coming. By the late 1890s, Maggie Lena Walker had ascended to a leadership role in the Independent Order of St. Luke, an organization that had long served as a lifeline for black Americans in a world that offered them neither equity nor empathy. When she became Right-Worthy Grand Secretary in 1899, the group was nearly bankrupt, with only a few hundred active members and minimal resources. But Maggie refused to let the institution die. She saw in it the blueprint for a bold and unprecedented vision: black financial independence. In an America that still spat on black progress, Walker began to preach a dangerous gospel, one that challenged both white supremacy and internalized black fear. "Let us put our monies together," she declared in one of her most famous speeches. "Let us have a bank that will take the nickels and turn them into dollars." She envisioned a network of black-run businesses, insurance firms, newspapers, schools, and yes, a bank that would nourish and protect the black community from economic exploitation. That vision became reality in 1903, when Walker founded the St. Luke Penny Savings Bank in Richmond. At just 39 years old, she had made history, becoming the first black woman in the United States to charter and serve as president of a bank. The St. Luke Penny Savings Bank wasn't just a place to deposit money, it was a political act, a cultural anchor, and a defiant rebuttal to systemic racism. It gave black people a way to build credit, buy homes, start businesses, and escape the cycle of poverty forced upon them by white-owned financial institutions that denied them loans or charged predatory rates. Walker didn't stop at banking. Under her leadership, the Independent Order of St. Luke expanded to include the St. Luke Herald newspaper, which amplified black voices and challenged injustice, and a department store run entirely by African Americans, an unprecedented feat at the time. Everything she built was interlinked in a vision of collective empowerment. Each dollar deposited in the bank could flow back into black homes, black schools, and black-owned businesses. Her success came at a cost. Maggie faced relentless criticism from both white authorities and, at times, black men who resented her unprecedented power. She endured threats, financial sabotage attempts, and the suffocating grip of segregation laws. But she pressed on, undeterred. To Maggie, the bank was more than a building. It was a citadel of dignity in a country that often treated black life as disposable. With each signature she penned on a loan approval and each coin counted into a savings account, Walker wasn't just building wealth, she was building a future. A future where black people would no longer have to beg for scraps but could hold the keys to their own economic liberation. And all of it, every ledger entry, every deposit slip, was birthed from the vision of a woman who once washed the clothes of the powerful, only to become one of the most powerful herself. When Maggie Lena Walker opened the doors of the St. Luke Penny Savings Bank in 1903, it wasn't merely a financial transaction, it was an act of revolution. In an era when black people were systematically denied access to banking services, her institution offered something unheard of: trust, dignity, and opportunity. White-owned banks refused loans to African Americans, denied them basic savings accounts, and often exploited them with predatory fees. Maggie's bank flipped the script. It gave the black community a place to build wealth on their own terms. From day one, the bank was a success. It drew over 1,000 depositors in its first year, proving that Maggie had tapped into a desperate need. But her goal wasn't just survival, it was transformation. She ran the bank with vision and discipline, ensuring that her staff, all African Americans, were impeccably trained, professionally dressed, and financially literate. She understood that excellence wasn't optional. In a world where one mistake could confirm racist stereotypes and bring down an entire institution, Maggie demanded, and modeled, perfection. Under her leadership, the bank did more than hold money. It provided mortgages for black families shut out of homeownership by racist lending practices. It funded churches, schools, and black-owned businesses, seeding the kind of community resilience that white supremacy sought to crush. Every loan was a silent protest against a rigged system. Every savings account was a shield against economic terrorism. Walker's institution became more than a bank. It was a symbol of defiance in a time of systemic injustice. But building a black bank in the Jim Crow South wasn't without risk. White competitors tried to undermine her. Local governments imposed discriminatory taxes and regulations. Some white-owned suppliers and customers refused to work with any business associated with Walker's enterprise. Yet she pressed on, unfazed. She believed deeply in collective strength. In 1920, she led the bank through a strategic merger with other black-owned banks, building a more resilient institution that could better weather financial storms. That decision proved prophetic. When the Great Depression devastated the U.S. economy in the 1930s, over 9,000 banks failed. Yet Maggie Lena Walker's bank survived. It remained one of the few black-owned banks to endure, a testament to her conservative fiscal strategy and deep trust within the community. While powerful white institutions collapsed, a wheelchair-bound black woman from Richmond kept her bank, and her people, standing tall. Even as her health declined from diabetes, she continued leading from home, never surrendering her role or her resolve. In a country that denied her humanity, she gave her people legacy. In a world that called her less than, she became more than most would ever dream to be. Maggie Lena Walker passed away on December 15, 1934, at the age of 70. Diabetes and health complications had slowed her body but never her spirit. From her wheelchair, she continued to strategize, guide, and inspire, a living legend whose journey began in the ashes of slavery and ended as a pillar of economic resistance. At the time of her death, she had not only made history, but rewritten it, carving her name into a wall built to keep black women out. Her passing marked the end of a singular life, but not the end of her mission. The St. Luke Penny Savings Bank, which she had led with unshakable resolve, did not die with her. It continued operating, eventually merging with other black-owned financial institutions to form the Consolidated Bank and Trust Company, at one point the oldest continually black-operated bank in the United States. Her vision of collective economic power had not only survived, it had evolved. Even in death, Maggie's influence was hard to ignore. She had helped more than just depositors, she had redefined black womanhood. She wasn't just a banker, she was an educator, activist, philanthropist, and businesswoman who fought on multiple fronts. Through her work with the Independent Order of St. Luke, she helped over 100,000 African Americans access services they had long been denied: insurance, burial assistance, savings, employment, and most importantly, self-belief. Her home in Richmond, Virginia, where she conducted much of her work in her later years, is now a National Historic Site, preserved by the National Park Service. Every room whispers her story, from the office where she signed loan approvals to the parlor where she mentored young women. Visitors walk through not just her house, but the corridors of black ambition and resistance. It is a place where past and present collide, where the laundry girl who became a banker still reigns. Maggie Lena Walker's name may not be in every textbook, but her fingerprints are everywhere. In every black-owned bank that rises, in every woman who leads a boardroom, in every young dreamer who believes they are more than what society tells them. She turned nickels into dollars, pain into power, and barriers into bridges. Her life is not just black history, it is American history, and it remains unfinished. Because the dream Maggie built is still alive, waiting to be claimed, protected, and expanded by the generations she made possible. And in every corner of America where freedom still feels out of reach, her spirit whispers, "Let us put our monies together." Maggie Lena Walker's life is a towering testament to what unwavering vision and service to humanity can achieve, even in the face of generational trauma and systemic injustice. Born to enslaved parents and raised in the shadows of racial violence and poverty, she transformed personal struggle into collective salvation. Through education, entrepreneurship, and institution building, she gave dignity to the disenfranchised and hope to the hopeless. Her bank didn't just hold money, it held dreams, empowered families, and funded futures that would have otherwise been denied. Her work was not just economic, but deeply humanitarian, uplifting communities, protecting widows, educating youth, and proving that self-determination could be a shield against a hostile world. Maggie's legacy lives on not only in ledgers and historic buildings but in the hearts of every person who dares to rise, lead, and give back. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and share this video. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful, hidden histories from Africa and the African diaspora that the world must never forget.